Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be sharing a heartwarming BL romance story called At the End of the Forest Path. So sit back, relax, and let's begin. The rain was relentless. Sheets of water crashed against the windshield as a black sedan sped along the mountain road cutting through the forest. Inside the car, a young man gripped the steering wheel tightly. His dark hair fell into his eyes, and exhaustion showed on his face. The road ahead was barely visible. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Once, twice, 3 times. He glanced at it for only a second. A mistake. The tires suddenly lost traction. The car skidded violently. Shit! The steering wheel jerked from his hands. The headlights spun across the darkness. The guardrail appeared too late. Crash! Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The vehicle broke through the railing and rolled down the steep slope into the forest below. Everything went black. Hours later, the storm had weakened. Rain still dripped from the towering trees, but dawn was beginning to brighten the sky. A man carrying a camera backpack walked through the forest trail. His name was Elias. At 26, he lived alone in a cabin deep within the reserve. Most people couldn't handle the isolation. Elias preferred it. The forest was quieter than people. As he followed a deer trail toward a nearby creek, something unusual caught his attention. Broken branches, fresh tire marks, and then a damaged car resting against a cluster of trees. Elias frowned. Seriously? He quickly approached. The driver's seat was empty. The door hung open. Someone had survived. But where had they gone? A trail of muddy footprints led deeper into the woods. Elias immediately followed them. A few minutes later, he found him. A young man lay unconscious beside a fallen log. His clothes were soaked. A cut marked the side of his forehead. He looked pale and exhausted, but he was breathing. Elias crouched beside him. Hey! No response. The young man didn't move. Elias sighed. Looks like my plans are canceled today. Carefully, he lifted the unconscious stranger into his arms and carried him home. The cabin sat beside a lake hidden within the forest. Large windows overlooked the water. Solar panels lined the roof. It was modern but simple, exactly the way Elias liked it. The stranger remained unconscious for most of the day. Elias cleaned his injuries, changed his wet clothes, and left him resting in the guest room. By evening, the rain had finally stopped. The cabin was quiet except for the soft crackling of the fireplace. Elias sat on the couch editing photographs on his laptop. Then, a sound, a faint movement. He looked up. The stranger was awake. Confused eyes scanned the room. The bed, the walls, the unfamiliar ceiling. Then finally, Elias. Panic flashed across the young man's face. Where am I? His voice was rough. In my cabin. The stranger tried sitting up. Pain shot through his head. He winced. Easy. Elias stood and walked over. You were in a car accident. The young man's expression froze. A car accident? Yeah. Fragments of confusion filled his eyes. He touched his forehead. His fingers trembled. The words caught in his throat. Elias suddenly felt uneasy. Something was wrong. The stranger looked around again, then back at him. A strange fear appeared on his face. Who are you? Elias. The young man nodded slowly, then asked a question that changed everything. Who am I? Silence. Elias stared. What? My name. The stranger's breathing became uneven. My name. His hands tightened around the blanket. I don't remember it. A cold feeling spread through the room. Elias immediately understood. No. The young man's eyes were beginning to panic. I can't remember. My family. My address. My phone number. Anything. He squeezed his eyes shut. Nothing came. No memories. No faces. No names. Just emptiness. When he looked up again, fear was written all over his face. I don't know who I am. For a long moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled softly nearby. Rain tapped against the windows. And in the middle of it all sat a stranger who had lost everything. Even himself. Elias pulled a chair beside the bed. His voice was calm. We'll figure it out. The young man looked at him. You really think so? Yeah. Elias offered a small smile. You're alive. That's a pretty good start. The stranger stared for a moment. Then, Despite everything, he laughed softly. A weak laugh, but real. And somehow, hearing it made Elias smile too. That night, the forest was quiet. The stranger lay awake staring at the ceiling. He couldn't remember who he was. He couldn't remember where he came from. For some reason, he couldn't stop thinking about the stranger's frightened eyes. Neither of them knew it yet, but the storm that brought them together was only the beginning. The first thing Rowan noticed when he woke up the next morning was the smell of coffee. Rich, warm, comforting. For a few seconds, he forgot everything. Then reality came crashing back. The accident, the missing memories, the fact that he had no idea who he was. Rowan stared at the ceiling. A strange emptiness settled in his chest. "You're awake." Elias's voice came from the doorway. He was holding 2 mugs. Unlike yesterday, Rowan got a better look at him. Messy dark brown hair, sharp green eyes, a loose beige shirt with rolled-up sleeves. Simple clothes that made him look like he belonged in the forest. He wasn't dressed like someone from the city at all. Rowan accepted the coffee. "Thanks." Elias sat on the edge of the desk. "How's your head?" "Still hurts." "That's normal." Rowan nodded. Then his expression darkened. "Still can't remember anything." Elias was quiet for a moment. "I figured." After breakfast, Elias opened his laptop. Rowan sat beside him. For hours they searched. Missing person reports, recent accidents, news articles, social media, anything. Nothing matched. No reports, no family searching, no photographs, no clues. It was as if Rowan had appeared out of nowhere. By lunchtime, frustration was written all over his face. "This is impossible." Elias closed the laptop. "We've only been searching for 1 day. What if nobody's looking for me?" The words slipped out before Rowan could stop them. The room fell silent. Elias looked at him carefully. The fear in Rowan's eyes wasn't hard to see. If someone disappeared, people would notice. "You don't know that." Elias didn't answer immediately. Then he said quietly, "I think you're important to someone." "Rowan, because if I lost someone like you, I'd be searching everywhere." The words came out naturally. Neither of them realized how personal they sounded. For some reason, Rowan's heart skipped. That afternoon, Elias suggested a walk. The doctor online said staying in bed all day isn't good. "We're trusting online doctors now. It's either that or I drag you outside." Rowan laughed. The sound surprised even him. It felt good. Natural. For the first time since waking up. The forest looked completely different during the day. Sunlight filtered through the trees. Birds called from above. A gentle breeze moved through the leaves. Rowan followed Elias along a narrow path. Everything fascinated him. The flowers, the insects, the small wooden bridges crossing streams. It all felt new, almost magical. At one point, they stopped beside a lake. The water was perfectly still. Rowan stared at his reflection. Dark hair, brown eyes, a bandage above his eyebrow. A stranger. "That's me." Elias stepped beside him. "Looks like it." Rowan laughed weakly. "It's weird." "What is?" "I know that's my face, but it doesn't feel like mine." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Elias said, "Maybe that's okay." Rowan looked at him. "You don't have to figure everything out today." The words settled warmly inside him. For the first time, he felt like he could breathe. That evening, rain tapped softly against the cabin windows. The two sat near the fireplace. Rowan scrolled aimlessly through his phone. Well, Elias's spare phone. His own had been destroyed in the crash. Still no memories. Still no answers. Then Elias suddenly looked up from his book. "You need a name." Rowan blinked. "A name? I can't keep calling you Hey You." Rowan laughed. "Fair enough." Rowan looked out the window. The name echoed in his mind. Rowan. Simple. Gentle. Warm. Somehow, it felt right. A smile slowly appeared on his face. "I like it." Elias smiled. "Then Rowan it is." For a moment, neither looked away. The fire crackled softly nearby. Rain whispered against the glass. And something unspoken passed between them. Small, quiet, but real. That night, Rowan sat by the bedroom window. The forest stretched endlessly beyond the glass. He still didn't know who he was. He still didn't know where he belonged. But for the first time since waking up, he didn't feel completely alone. Downstairs, Elias looked up from his book. A faint smile appeared on his face. The cabin had felt empty for years. Yet somehow had also brought him exactly where he needed to be. A week passed, then another, and somehow, Rowan was still living in Elias's cabin. The police had investigated the accident. No identification. No missing person report. No family contacts. Nothing. It made no sense. Yet every lead ended the same way. A dead end. At first, Rowan hated sitting around doing nothing. He couldn't work. Couldn't leave. Couldn't even remember what kind of life he used to have. So one morning, he decided to help. Elias walked into the kitchen to find Rowan standing on a chair, struggling to reach a shelf. "What are you doing?" Rowan nearly fell. "Elias." The chair wobbled dangerously. Elias immediately grabbed his waist and steadied him. For a second, they froze. Far too close. Rowan could feel Elias's hand against his side. Elias could feel Rowan's racing heartbeat. They quickly stepped apart. "I was trying to clean." Rowan's ears turned red. Elias sighed. "By risking your life? It wasn't that dangerous. You almost died reaching a cereal box." From then on, Rowan made himself useful. He cooked, cleaned, helped organize supplies, even learned how to repair simple things around the cabin. To his surprise, he enjoyed it. Life here was simple, peaceful, nothing like the strange flashes of skyscrapers and crowded streets that occasionally appeared in his dreams. One afternoon, while fixing a loose fence near the lake, Rowan glanced at Elias. "Can I ask something?" "You just did." Rowan rolled his eyes. Elias smirked. "Go ahead. Why do you live out here alone?" The smile disappeared. For a moment, Elias looked toward the forest. The answer took longer than expected. "I like the quiet." "That's it. Mostly." Rowan frowned. "Mostly." Elias looked away. There was someone. Rowan blinked. Someone? The unexpected jealousy startled him. "Someone? My grandfather." Rowan relaxed slightly. Elias laughed. "You thought I meant an ex?" Rowan immediately looked elsewhere. "No. You absolutely did." "I didn't." "You did." The grin on Elias's face lasted the entire afternoon. That evening, rain began falling. Not a storm, just a gentle drizzle. The kind Rowan had started to love. The two sat on the porch overlooking the lake. Warm tea in hand. The forest glowed softly beneath the rain. "It's beautiful." Rowan spoke quietly. Elias glanced at him. "The forest. Being here." The words slipped out naturally. "I don't know why." Rowan stared across the water. "But whenever I'm here," his hand touched his chest. "It feels calm." Elias watched him carefully. Something warm settled inside him. For years, he'd lived alone, never feeling the need for company. Yet now, the thought of Rowan leaving someday made his chest ache. The next morning, the weather was perfect. Bright blue skies, warm sunlight, a clear river flowing through the forest. Rowan had insisted on joining Elias during a supply run. Everything was going well. Until, look, Rowan stepped onto a large rock near the riverbank. Elias instantly frowned. "Don't. Relax. It's slippery." "I'll be fine." His foot slipped. Rowan. Splash. Cold water swallowed him whole. The river wasn't deep, but the current was stronger than expected. Rowan disappeared beneath the surface. For one terrifying second, he didn't come back up. Elias's heart stopped. Without hesitation, he jumped into the river. The freezing water hit like ice. His eyes searched desperately. Then, there, Rowan, caught against a submerged branch. Elias grabbed him immediately, pulling him toward shore. "Are you insane?" The moment they reached land, Elias was furious and terrified. Rowan coughed water. "I'm okay." "You disappeared." "Elias, you could have been seriously hurt." For a moment, Rowan stared. Then realization hit. Elias looked genuinely scared. Not angry. Scared. Because of him. The thought made Rowan's heart beat strangely fast. "Elias." The older man finally looked at him. "I'm okay." Silence. Water dripped from their clothes. Neither moved. Neither looked away. The distance between them suddenly felt very small. Far too small. A strange tension hung in the air. One neither understood. Or maybe neither wanted to understand. Then, Elias stood abruptly. "We're going home." Rowan blinked. "You're still mad?" "Very." You jumped into a river for me. Don't remind me. A smile tugged at Rowan's lips. For some reason, the rest of the walk home felt different. That night, neither slept well. Rowan couldn't stop thinking about the way Elias had looked when he thought something had happened to him. Rowan couldn't stop thinking about the way Elias had looked when he thought something had happened to him. And Elias couldn't stop replaying the moment he'd seen Rowan disappear beneath the water. Because the fear he'd felt wasn't normal. Not for someone he'd only known a few weeks. Not for a stranger. Not anymore. The days after the river incident felt strange. Not bad. Just different. Every time Rowan looked at Elias, he remembered the fear in his eyes that day. The way he had jumped into the water without hesitation. The way he had held him afterward. As if losing him would have been unbearable. And somehow, Rowan couldn't stop thinking about it. A few days later, rain returned to the forest. Heavy clouds covered the sky. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Rowan stood by the kitchen window, watching raindrops race down glass. You like rain a lot. Elias was chopping vegetables nearby. Rowan smiled. I think so. You think so? I don't remember if I liked it before. The smile faded slightly. But now I do. Elias looked up. Why? Rowan glanced outside, then toward him. Because it reminds me of this place. For a second, neither looked away. Elias quickly returned to chopping vegetables. Unfortunately for him, Rowan noticed the faint redness on his ears. That evening, the storm became worse. Wind shook the trees. Rain hammered the roof. The lights flickered once. Twice. Then, darkness. The power went out. Seriously? Rowan groaned. Elias sighed. Give me a minute. Within minutes, several lanterns illuminated the cabin with warm golden light. The atmosphere changed instantly. The soft glow made everything feel calmer. More intimate. Rowan sat cross-legged on the living room floor while Elias lit another lantern. Looks cozy. It's only cozy because you're not the one fixing the solar batteries tomorrow. Rowan laughed. Elias smiled despite himself. Hours later, the storm showed no signs of stopping. Neither felt sleepy, so they sat together near the fireplace, talking about everything. Favorite foods, movies, childhood memories. Well, mostly Elias's childhood memories, since Rowan still couldn't remember his own. At some point, Rowan became unusually quiet. Elias noticed immediately. What is it? Rowan stared into the fire. Do you think my memories will come back? The question hung heavily between them. Elias thought carefully. Probably. I'm not a doctor. Rowan smiled weakly. Then his expression turned serious. What if they do? Elias didn't answer, because he knew what Rowan really meant. What if his memories returned? What if he remembered a life somewhere else? What if he left? The thought hurt more than it should. Finally, Elias spoke. Then you'll decide what you want. Rowan looked at him. And if I leave? The words slipped out quietly, almost like a whisper. The cabin suddenly felt too silent. Elias stared at the fire. If that's what makes you happy. His voice sounded calm, but Rowan could hear the sadness hidden beneath it. For some reason, it made his chest ache. A loud crash of thunder shook the cabin. Instinctively, Rowan flinched. The sound triggered something. A flash. A memory. Bright city lights. Tall buildings. Someone calling his name. A familiar voice. Then, pain. His head suddenly throbbed. Elias. Rowan grabbed the side of his head. Immediately, Elias moved beside him. What's wrong? I saw something. His breathing quickened. A memory. Elias's heart skipped. A real memory? Rowan nodded. But it's gone. The image had already disappeared, like smoke slipping through his fingers. Frustration filled his eyes. I almost remembered. Elias gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't force it. Rowan looked up. Their faces were suddenly close. Very close. Neither had noticed. The room felt smaller, warmer. The sound of rain faded into the background. For a moment, neither moved. Neither spoke. Their eyes remained locked. Rowan's heart was racing. Elias's wasn't doing much better. The distance between them kept feeling smaller. 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 Then, a deafening crack of thunder echoed outside. Both jumped apart instantly. Elias. A terrified orange blur suddenly launched across the room. Machi. The cabin cat landed directly between them. Perfect timing. Or terrible timing, depending on who you asked. Rowan burst out laughing. Elias buried his face in one hand. Unbelievable. Machi meowed proudly, as if he had just saved the world. Later that night, Rowan lay awake in bed. The storm had finally begun to calm, yet his thoughts were louder than the thunder had ever been, because he finally understood something. The feeling in his chest whenever Elias smiled. The disappointment whenever Elias walked away. The happiness whenever they spent time together. It wasn't friendship anymore. Not entirely. And that realization terrified him. Across the hall, Elias stared at his own ceiling, unable to sleep, because he had realized something too. The thought of Rowan leaving hurt. The thought of Rowan getting hurt terrified him. And the almost moment by the fireplace. He couldn't stop replaying it, no matter how hard he tried. Neither knew what would happen next. But one thing had become impossible to deny. The line between friendship and something more was beginning to disappear. The memory returned on an ordinary morning. Not during a storm. Not during some dramatic accident. Just an ordinary morning. The kind Rowan had come to love. Sunlight streamed through the cabin windows. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen. Elias stood by the counter preparing breakfast. Meanwhile, Rowan sat at the table scrolling through articles on his phone. A new phone. A new life. At least that's what it felt like. Then, a news notification appeared. A business conference in the city. A photograph accompanied the article. The moment Rowan saw it, everything stopped. A sharp pain shot through his head. His phone slipped from his hand. Rowan. Elias immediately looked up. But Rowan couldn't hear him. Memories exploded through his mind. Faces. Voices. Names. A city skyline. A luxury apartment. Board meetings. Rowan sat on the porch staring at the lake. His memories had returned. Every single one. His real name wasn't Rowan. It was Adrian Lee, 23 years old, son of one of the largest business families in the country. His disappearance had been all over the news. His family had spent weeks searching. The reason nobody found him? The accident happened in a remote area. His car had been registered under a company account. The investigation had gone in the wrong direction from the beginning. A single mistake, and everything changed. Elias quietly stepped onto the porch. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, you remembered. It wasn't a question. Rowan nodded. Yeah. The word felt heavy. Elias stared at the lake. That's good. Rowan looked at him. The smile on Elias's face didn't reach his eyes. And that hurt more than anything. The next few days passed painfully. Phone calls, police reports, family members, news reporters. Everything happened so quickly. The quiet life Rowan had built disappeared overnight. Soon everyone knew where he was. Soon everyone wanted him back. Back to the city. Back to Adrian Lee. Back to the life he used to have. The night before he was supposed to leave, Rowan couldn't sleep. He found Elias sitting alone on the dock. The moon reflected across the lake. The forest was silent, just like the night they first met. Rowan sat beside him. Neither spoke. Eventually, Elias laughed softly. You know, Rowan looked over. When I found you, I thought you were going to be a huge problem. Rowan smiled. Thanks. You were rude. You nearly drowned. One time was enough. For a moment, they both laughed. Then silence returned. A painful silence, because both of them knew what tomorrow meant. Finally, Elias stood. You should get some sleep. Rowan grabbed his wrist. The movement surprised both of them. Elias froze. So did Rowan. Neither let go. Don't. His voice came out barely above a whisper. Elias looked at him. Don't what? Don't act like this doesn't matter. The words escaped before Rowan could stop them. Weeks of emotions finally breaking free. The forest suddenly felt very quiet. Very still. Elias's heartbeat thundered in his ears. What are you saying? Rowan laughed nervously, then shook his head. No, he wasn't running anymore. Not from this. Not from his feelings. I think I fell in love with you. The confession hung in the air. Raw, honest, terrifying. For a second, Elias simply stared, as if his brain had stopped working. Then Rowan smiled weakly. Say something. Elias suddenly laughed. A genuine laugh. The kind Rowan rarely heard. What? Rowan blinked. What? You really waited until the night before leaving? A smile appeared on Elias's face. The warm one. The one Rowan loved most. That's your timing. Realization slowly dawned on Rowan. His eyes widened. Elias, I've been in love with you for weeks, idiot. For one full second, neither moved. Then both started laughing. The tension shattered instantly, relief washing over them. There's one problem, Elias finally said. Rowan groaned. Already, you live in the city. You hate the city. Correct. Rowan pretended to think. What? I guess you'll have to move in with me. Elias stared, then shook his head. Unbelievable. Rowan grinned. No. Rowan's smile slowly faded. Then Elias stepped closer. Because we're staying here. Rowan blinked. What? I like this place. Elias squeezed his hand. And honestly, his smile softened. You already feel like home. For a moment, Rowan couldn't speak. His chest felt painfully full. The good kind of painful. The kind that made tears gather unexpectedly. Then, beneath the moonlight, in the forest that had brought them together, they share their first kiss. Soft, gentle, certain, no confusion, no hesitation. Just two people choosing each other. 6 months later, the cabin looked exactly the same. Except now, there were 2 coffee mugs on the table every morning, 2 pairs of shoes near the door, and one extremely spoiled orange cat named Machi. The forest remained peaceful, the lake remained beautiful, and the life they built together continued growing. Not because Rowan forgot who he was, but because he finally remembered what mattered most. Sometimes getting lost was the only way to find home. The end. Sometimes getting lost isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of finding where you truly belong. Thank you for reading At the End of the Forest Path. If you want more heartwarming BL stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, comment your favorite moment below. See you in the next chapter of another story.